In a world built to keep you weak, where every app is engineered to steal your focus, where fast pleasure is sold as happiness, and where silence is feared more than failure, most people don't realize they're addicts, not to drugs, but to comfort, to noise, to the endless cycle of cheap dopamine and empty validation. We scroll instead of study, we binge instead of build. We chase instant gratification and wonder why purpose feels so far away. But here, on Buddhism Pathways, we do what the world fears. We unplug. We face the discomfort. We walk straight into the silence that most people run from. Because Buddhist wisdom teaches this simple truth. You don't need more motivation. You need to remove what's killing your discipline. You need to train your mind to stop craving what's easy and start desiring what makes you stronger. This is not a detox for the body. It's a reset for the mind, a return to clarity, a rebellion against distraction, and the beginning of a new identity, one that loves doing the hard things. Welcome to the path of silence. Welcome to your reset. Let's begin. Lesson 1. Pleasure is poisoning you. The modern world has redefined pleasure into something hollow and harmful. What once was a reward earned through effort has now become an endless stream of stimulation handed out freely, instantly and constantly. Every time you reach for your phone, every time you mindlessly scroll, every time you eat out of boredom or distraction, your brain gets a spike of dopamine, but your discipline pays the price. These quick hits of pleasure feel harmless, but they're rewiring your mind to crave the easy, to avoid the difficult, and to depend on outside stimulation for inner satisfaction. You begin to fear stillness. You lose patience with silence. You avoid tasks that don't offer instant rewards. Buddhism teaches that this is not joy, this is enslavement. It's an addiction to what weakens you, a trap disguised as comfort. True joy, the kind that strengthens the soul and brings clarity, does not come from escaping discomfort. It comes from enduring it and transforming it. But when your brain is constantly fed shallow pleasure, it loses the ability to tolerate any level of pain, focus, or stillness. You start to feel anxious in silence. You feel lost without noise. You feel unmotivated when effort is required. This is not rest. This is a slow decay of your inner power. The more you indulge in fake pleasure, the more you kill your hunger for real growth. You become addicted to ease, and that addiction softens your mind, breaks your momentum, and blinds you to your own potential. You start avoiding challenges not because you're weak, but because your brain no longer knows how to enjoy doing what's difficult. Buddhism warns against this exact condition, the life of unconscious craving, where the mind becomes a servant to fleeting highs instead of a master of lasting meaning. Every time you give in to artificial pleasure, you teach your brain that escape is the answer. And with enough repetition, you lose the ability to sit with boredom, to build long-term goals, or to enjoy anything that takes time. Your strength fades. Your mind becomes reactive, impulsive, and easily distracted. And in that state, you can no longer see truth clearly. You stop thinking. You start consuming. You stop growing. You start numbing. This is how pleasure becomes poison. Not through intensity, but through frequency. Not through drama, but through repetition. What seems small becomes deadly when it's constant. True pleasure is not a momentary high. It is a state of peace built from meaning, discipline, and clarity. And that kind of pleasure cannot be bought, scrolled, or swallowed. It must be earned. It must be cultivated in the mind until you realize that these modern comforts are silently consuming your focus and stealing your strength. You will continue to chase them, thinking you're enjoying life, when in reality you're losing it. Lesson 2. You're addicted to nothingness. You are not just addicted to pleasure. You are addicted to nothingness, to a cycle of empty actions that give you nothing but the illusion of satisfaction. The tragedy is that this addiction is silent. It doesn't scream like drugs. It doesn't burn like alcohol. It whispers. It looks harmless. It feels normal. But that's what makes it so dangerous. You wake up and check your phone before you check in with your own mind. You scroll before you breathe with intention. You drown in digital noise before you even remember who you are. This is not relaxation. This is spiritual starvation. You are feeding your brain with microbursts of meaningless pleasure while starving your soul of purpose, connection, and direction. Buddhism calls this the state of unconscious craving, where the mind is trapped in constant seeking without ever arriving. You consume information without wisdom, entertainment without rest, stimulation without fulfillment. This creates a hollow existence, always busy, but never still, always consuming, but never digesting, always running, but going nowhere. Your thoughts become scattered. Your focus becomes fragile. Your identity becomes shaped by the noise you absorb rather than the silence you cultivate. And worst of all, you begin to fear stillness. You start to avoid the very things that make you whole: boredom, solitude, silence, because they expose the truth. You are uncomfortable with yourself, and so you run. Into the screen, into the scroll, into the distraction. You become terrified of sitting alone, not because you're weak, but because you've forgotten how to be fully present with your own mind. Buddhism teaches that everything you seek outside is already within you, but an addicted mind cannot hear that truth. It is too loud with noise and too numb to feel. The addiction to nothingness trains your brain to avoid every moment that matters. You skip meditation because it's boring. You abandon your goals because they're uncomfortable. You ignore your inner world because it demands your attention. And that is how people waste decades without even realizing it. Not in some grand disaster, but in tiny, meaningless choices repeated over and over again until nothing of value remains. The cost of this addiction is not just your time, it is your identity. It is your ability to grow, to think, to reflect, to feel joy in the present moment. The more you give your attention to what is meaningless, the less energy you have for what is sacred. And if you do not reclaim that energy, you will continue to exist in a loop of distractions, never building, never reflecting, never becoming who you were meant to be. To detox from this addiction is to interrupt that cycle. It is to sit with discomfort until it becomes strength. It is to remove what numbs you so you can feel life fully. Because if you cannot be alone with yourself, you will always be a prisoner, no matter how free your life appears on the outside. Lesson 3. Starve your cravings. Feed your focus. Focus is not a gift. It is not something you're born with or something you find by chance. It is a force you create by removing what weakens it, and what weakens it most is the constant feeding of cravings, small, mindless impulses that seem harmless but slowly consume your ability to stay centered. The moment you reach for your phone during a pause, check messages in the middle of thought, eat to escape boredom, or scroll to silence discomfort. You're not just wasting time, you're training your mind to abandon itself. Every craving obeyed becomes a vote for chaos. Every urge indulged becomes a lesson in distraction. And over time, your mind becomes addicted to fragmentation. It forgets how to hold a single thought. It forgets how to sit still, how to concentrate, how to move in one direction with force. Buddhism teaches that the mind becomes what it does repeatedly. If it is always being pulled, it will forget how to stand. If it is always satisfied immediately, it will forget how to wait. Cravings are not just annoyances, they are thieves. They steal your presence, your energy, your momentum, and your clarity. And the only way to defeat them is not by ignoring them, but by starving them. When a craving arises, sit with it, observe it, do nothing, let it burn, but don't feed it. Because the moment you choose not to obey it, you teach your brain that you are in control, that you do not need that sugar, that noise, that flash of dopamine to stay grounded. And every time you resist, you strengthen your ability to focus. Cravings lose power the moment you stop fearing them. They're only loud because you've made them your masters. But when you stop responding, they shrink. Your mind begins to stabilize. You gain the space to think deeply, to work without interruption, to feel peace without needing escape. The reason most people can't focus is not because they're lazy, it's because they've been too obedient to their impulses. Buddhism warns us that attachment brings suffering, and the modern mind is addicted to micro-attachments, constant, mindless rituals that feed weakness and starve wisdom. If you want power, if you want stillness, you must break the loop. Subtract what dilutes your strength. Subtract what scatters your energy. Focus is the result of 100 small acts of resistance. It is built through sacrifice. It is earned through discomfort. And once you experience the power of a focused mind, a mind that moves with precision, undisturbed by noise, you will never want to return to the life of constant cravings again. That's how you feed your focus, not by doing more, but by needing less. Lesson 4. Make pain pleasurable again. Pain has been misunderstood by the modern mind. It is seen as a sign of failure, a barrier, something to escape, numb, or avoid. But this misunderstanding is the very reason people remain weak. In truth, pain is not the problem. Your relationship with pain is. From a Buddhist lens, pain is not a curse. It is a mirror, a guide, a purifier. It strips away illusion and reveals where you are still attached, still reactive, still untrained. But society has taught you to fear pain, to run at the first sign of discomfort, to avoid effort like disease. Everything around you, convenience, entertainment, artificial pleasure, exists to protect you from ever feeling discomfort. But in doing so, it robs you of your transformation. You can't grow without friction. You can't evolve without resistance. You can't sharpen your mind if you never let it be tested. The strongest minds are not built in comfort. They are forged in the fire of daily discomfort, shaped by endurance, strengthened by pressure. If you never sit with pain, you never learn from it. You treat it as punishment instead of process. You look for a way out instead of a way through. And that's why you remain fragile, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Buddhism teaches that suffering is part of life, but how you respond to it determines whether it becomes your prison or your path. If you lean into pain with awareness instead of resistance, you discover its true nature. Pain reveals what needs to be healed, what needs to be let go, what needs to be built. Whether it's physical pain, emotional turmoil, or mental resistance during discipline, all of it is sacred when faced directly. It becomes a training ground, not a punishment. But this only happens when you stop seeing pain as the enemy and begin treating it as a teacher. You must recondition your brain to welcome discomfort, to find calm inside chaos, to find stillness inside strain. The reason most people never become great is because they keep quitting at discomfort's doorstep. They walk away when things get hard, when it burns, when it stretches. But that's exactly when the transformation begins. The longer you sit with the pain, the more you learn about yourself. You discover that pain does not destroy you. It reveals you. The deeper you go into the discomfort, the clearer your mind becomes, the stronger your focus sharpens, the louder your inner strength speaks. Eventually, pain is no longer something you tolerate. It becomes something you trust. Because you've seen what it creates, you've experienced the calm that follows the chaos. You've built the habit of not flinching, and that habit becomes your edge. You become the one who doesn't run, the one who doesn't quit, the one who doesn't panic when life becomes heavy. This is where true confidence is born. This is where your discipline gets anchored, and this is where your mind stops chasing comfort and starts chasing growth. When pain no longer breaks you, it builds you. When you stop fearing it, you start using it. This is how you make pain pleasurable again, not by pretending it's easy, but by mastering it until it becomes the reason you rise. Lesson 5. Delay it. Dominate it. The impulse to seek instant gratification is the root of modern mental weakness. You feel a craving, and you obey. You feel bored, and you run. You feel restless, and you reach for distraction. This is not freedom. This is enslavement dressed as convenience. The mind that cannot delay pleasure is a mind that cannot command itself. Buddhism teaches that true mastery begins when you stop being a slave to your impulses and start becoming a witness to them. To delay is not to deny. It is to reclaim your authority. When you feel the urge to check your phone, to eat, to escape, and you choose to wait, you are no longer reacting. You are training. Every second of delay is a quiet act of resistance. It is you telling your brain, "I decide." That small pause creates a gap, and in that gap, you begin to build something stronger than impulse: discipline. Modern culture conditions you to expect everything now: replies, results, rewards. But what comes fast leaves fast. What is instant is empty. True rewards, mental clarity, spiritual depth, personal power, they take time, they require patience, they demand presence. But your brain, overstimulated by artificial speed, has forgotten how to wait. And that's why you must train it. Delay what you want. Pause when you feel pulled. Sit in the discomfort of the moment without reaching for relief. You will feel agitation, anxiety, tension. But that tension is not your enemy. That tension is the beginning of rewiring. In Buddhism, this is the practice of vairagya, detachment not from life, but from reactivity. It's the path of restraint, of holding back so your power grows deeper before it is expressed. The one who delays gratification gains power over the one who obeys it. Because each delay is a rep. Each act of restraint is a mental repetition. Just like muscle builds under resistance, your mind builds under self-control. Eventually, what once felt urgent begins to feel irrelevant. You are no longer pulled by cravings. You are no longer seduced by the need for immediacy. You act from clarity, not from compulsion. You decide when to act, and that decision is anchored in awareness, not weakness. This is how kings are built. Not in the noise of indulgence, but in the quiet discipline of delay. You delay comfort to grow strength. You delay escape to build presence. You delay pleasure to increase value. And in doing so, you dominate the part of you that once ran your life without your permission. This is what it means to delay it. Not to suffer, but to rise. And in rising, you don't just take back your time. You take back your throne. Lesson 6. Silence is your superpower. In a world addicted to noise, silence is a weapon, not one of violence, but of clarity, power, and control. Most people are terrified of silence because it reveals the very thing they've been trying to avoid, themselves. The moment the noise fades, the truth gets loud. In silence, your mind is no longer distracted, and everything you've been suppressing rises to the surface. Your fear, your doubt, your confusion, your unresolved thoughts. This is why people run to their phones the moment they wake up. This is why music plays in the background of everything. This is why social media never ends, because silence threatens the false peace built on distraction. But in Buddhist practice, silence is not empty. It is the space where truth lives. It is not weakness. It is presence in its purest form. When you enter silence with awareness, you begin to see things as they are. You begin to observe your mind instead of being ruled by it. You become the witness, not the reactor. And in that witnessing, power returns. Because a silent mind is not passive. It is alert. It watches without attachment. It listens without judgment. It acts without chaos. In silence, you train your nervous system to remain calm under pressure. You strip away the noise that confuses you. You become grounded, stable, immovable. The world will always be loud. People will always talk. Distractions will always exist. But when you cultivate silence within yourself, none of it reaches you. You become untouchable in your stillness. And that stillness becomes your advantage. You no longer react out of emotion. You respond with precision. You no longer crave validation. You build self-respect in quiet. You no longer need noise to feel alive, because your mind, in silence, becomes a fortress. The strongest warriors in history weren't loud. They were calculated, calm, unreadable. This is the essence of silence in Buddhism, not the absence of words, but the presence of mastery. When you walk into a room with a silent mind, you carry a presence that cannot be ignored. People feel it. It speaks without sound. It demands no attention, but commands respect. Silence is not what you fall into when you have nothing to say. It is what you choose when you have nothing to prove. And in that choice, you become free. Free from overthinking, free from impulse, free from the chaos of the world. This is your superpower. In a time when everyone is shouting to be seen, your silence will make them listen. When the world moves fast, your stillness will slow it down. And when others lose themselves in the noise, you will rise in the quiet, unshaken, unmoved, and fully in control. Lesson 7. Don't chase dopamine. Earn it. The mind that chases dopamine becomes its servant. The mind that earns dopamine becomes its master. Every time you reach for instant pleasure without effort, you devalue the reward. You confuse stimulation with success. You mistake noise for progress. And slowly, your brain stops associating effort with satisfaction. It begins to expect joy for doing nothing. That expectation weakens everything: your drive, your resilience, your clarity. Buddhism teaches that desire without awareness leads to suffering, and dopamine, when chased blindly, becomes the fuel for endless craving. You want more, but you feel less. You achieve more, but you care less. You consume more, but grow less. This is what happens when you flood your mind with rewards that are not earned. The system collapses. You lose motivation to study, to train, to meditate, to create, because your brain has been taught that it can feel good without effort. But what you don't realize is that unearned dopamine is toxic. It erodes your ability to find meaning in discipline. It rewires your brain to avoid the very process that creates power. If you want to reverse this decay, you must recondition your reward system. You must train your brain to associate dopamine with doing the hard thing, not skipping it. You delay gratification, you embrace effort, you stay with discomfort, and only then, at the end, you feel the dopamine hit. That's when it becomes powerful. That's when it reinforces the right habits. You start to crave meditation because it grounds you. You start to enjoy focus because it rewards you. You start to feel pleasure not from escape, but from execution. That shift changes everything. You no longer feel helpless in the face of cravings. You control what creates them. And once you take back that control, dopamine becomes your ally. It becomes a force that works for you, not against you. Buddhism does not tell you to reject desire. It teaches you to understand it, to channel it, to transcend it. When you stop chasing rewards and start earning them through silence, patience, and discipline, you build a mind that no longer begs for stimulation. It waits, it works, it watches. And when the moment comes, the reward means something, because it was built, not given. That's the difference between addiction and alignment. One takes everything and leaves you empty. The other demands everything and leaves you full. You don't rise by chasing dopamine. You rise by becoming the kind of person who earns it, through mastery, through stillness, through strength that doesn't seek pleasure, but creates it from purpose. Lesson 8. Comfort kills clarity. Comfort is the silent killer of clarity. It dulls your senses, weakens your awareness, and traps your mind in softness while disguising itself as peace. But true peace does not come from indulgence. It comes from alignment. Most people chase comfort, thinking it will bring them rest, but it only brings disconnection. You eat when you're not hungry. You scroll when you're not bored. You speak when silence is wiser. These small comforts slowly numb your ability to see, to feel, to think clearly. Buddhism teaches that the more attached you are to ease, the more clouded your perception becomes. A mind addicted to comfort becomes lazy in thought, resistant to truth, and fragile under pressure. The moment things get hard, it breaks. The moment effort is required, it quits. Clarity is not born in convenience. It is forged in friction. The sharpest minds come from silence, solitude, restraint. But comfort removes all resistance. It shields you from challenge, and without challenge, the mind cannot grow. It forgets how to endure. It forgets how to wait. It forgets how to observe without reacting. That's why the most distracted people are often the most comfortable. They never sit long enough with themselves to see through the illusion. They confuse ease with understanding, pleasure with progress, and comfort with wisdom. But clarity only comes when you strip the excess away. You must subtract the noise, the indulgence, the unnecessary stimulation. You must make space for awareness to emerge. And that means choosing discomfort, not to suffer, but to see. The discomfort of discipline, the silence of thought, the resistance of patience. These are not punishments, they are purification. Comfort shields you from pain, but it also blocks you from truth. And without truth, your mind drifts. Your purpose fades. Your direction disappears. You begin to chase feelings instead of meaning. You react instead of reflect. You survive instead of lead. To reclaim your clarity, you must be willing to let go of what numbs you, even if it feels good. The bed that keeps you sleeping, the food that keeps you sluggish, the app that keeps you scrolling. These comforts may feel harmless, but they cost you your edge. And once that edge is gone, so is your clarity. But when you break the habit of comfort, when you train yourself to sit in what's uncomfortable, your mind sharpens again. Your senses return. Your awareness deepens. You begin to see not just the world, but yourself, clearly, calmly, and without distortion. That is the cost of clarity. That is the reward of discomfort. And that is why comfort must be sacrificed. Not because it's wrong, but because it stands in the way of everything right. Lesson 9. Rewire your mind to crave effort. Your mind is not fixed. It is programmable. It adapts to whatever you feed it. If you constantly feed it shortcuts, ease and avoidance, it will begin to crave escape. But if you consistently feed it challenge, focus and effort, it will learn to hunger for growth. Buddhism teaches that the mind becomes what it does. And if your daily life is built around avoiding discomfort, your brain will resist anything that requires energy. But this isn't permanent. You can rewire it. You can reverse the damage. You can rebuild the habit of effort by breaking the addiction to ease. The process is simple, but not easy. You start small, by doing what's hard, even when you don't feel like it. You meditate when your mind wants stimulation. You study when your body wants rest. You sit in silence when the world is pulling you toward distraction. Every time you do this, you create friction. And that friction is what rewires the brain. The neural pathways that once fired toward laziness now begin to reroute toward discipline. The old mind resists, but the new mind is being born in real time. You don't have to want to do the work, you just have to do it anyway. Eventually, what was once effort becomes identity. You no longer have to force yourself, because your brain begins to crave the challenge. That's when everything changes. You begin to associate pain with progress. You begin to link resistance with power. You begin to feel discomfort as a sign you're moving in the right direction. In Buddhism, this is the transformation of the conditioned mind, from reactive and unconscious to intentional and free. You are no longer pulled by old patterns. You are no longer ruled by impulses. You are creating a new relationship with effort, one rooted in purpose, not pressure. The more you practice this, the deeper the rewiring goes. Your body learns to endure. Your attention learns to lock in. Your emotions learn to stabilize. And slowly, you become the kind of person who doesn't wait for motivation, because effort itself has become your fuel. You no longer fear the hard path. You look for it, because you know that's where your growth is hiding. This is not about suffering. This is about mastery. This is not about pushing yourself blindly. This is about designing a mind that knows how to meet resistance with strength. The world is full of people chasing what's easy. Let them. Your path is different. You don't crave escape, you crave effort. Because effort is the proof that you are still in control. And a life built on effort will never be controlled by weakness. Lesson 10. Turn discipline into a drug. Discipline is not something you force. It is something you train your mind to crave. What begins as resistance can, with repetition, become a source of internal reward so powerful that it replaces the shallow dopamine spikes of distraction. This is the transformation most people never reach, because they never stay with discomfort long enough to feel its deeper reward. They quit at the threshold, right before the shift. But Buddhism teaches that suffering transforms the moment you stop running from it. Discipline is the same. At first, it burns, it pushes back, it feels like punishment. But as you endure it day after day, something begins to shift. Your nervous system adapts. Your mind clears. Your energy sharpens. The very actions you once avoided, waking early, sitting in silence, working in solitude, pushing through when it's hard, begin to feel natural, even necessary. You stop looking for ways out, and you start looking forward to the process. You begin to feel uneasy without it. And that unease is proof that the rewiring is complete. Your brain has started releasing dopamine after discipline, not before it. The reward is no longer the easy escape. It's the hard work itself. That's how discipline becomes your drug. You crave the calm it brings. You hunger for the structure. You feel peace in the repetition. This is not obsession. This is alignment. You are no longer depending on mood, energy, or circumstance, because your system is now calibrated to effort. You are not forcing action. You are addicted to the identity it creates. And in this state, you become dangerous, not to others, but to every weakness that once ruled you. The world can't tempt a person who finds pleasure in self-control. It can't distract someone who finds clarity and structure. It can't manipulate someone whose joy is rooted in inner mastery. Buddhism has always taught that true freedom is not found in doing whatever you want. It is found in mastering the self so fully that you no longer want what weakens you. Discipline is not a cage. It is the door out of chaos. It is the rhythm that tames the wildness of thought, the routine that silences the noise, the practice that purifies the mind. And when it becomes automatic, when your mind starts releasing pleasure from doing what strengthens you, you have reached the final stage of power, where what was once effort is now fuel, what was once pain is now peace, and what was once hard is now who you are. In conclusion, rebuild the mind, reclaim your power. The mind you have today is not broken, it's just been misled, trained to chase what's easy, programmed to fear what's hard, rewarded for avoiding the very struggles that create strength. But now you see clearly, dopamine is not the enemy. Distraction is not stronger than you. Comfort is not your home, it's your cage. And the way out is not through force, but through awareness, through silence, through discipline, through choosing effort so often that your mind begins to crave it. You don't fix your life by chasing more pleasure. You fix it by rewiring what you call pleasure. The world taught you to love what softens you. Now it's time to love what sharpens you. You are not here to obey your cravings. You are here to master them. You are not here to live distracted. You are here to live deliberately. And when the world screams for attention, you will stay calm in the storm, because your power no longer comes from outside noise. It comes from the stillness within. This is the path few walk, the path of restraint, presence, control. But this path is the only one that leads to peace. If you've made it this far, then your mind is already shifting. Let it. Let go of the habits that shrink you. Starve the cravings that steal your clarity. Rebuild the system. Rebuild your strength. Because once you train your brain to love doing hard things, truly love them, nothing can stop you. The war ends the day you stop chasing dopamine and start earning it.